From the Ear to There Travel Studio, this is the Ear to There Disney Podcast.
The Ear to There Podcast, it's time to start the show. Be sure to hold on tight, here we go. Exploring all the different Disney destinations. Ear to There, it's time to start the fun.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ear to There Disney Podcast. I'm your host, Phil Gramlich. I'm also the owner and the founder of Ear to There Travel, which is a Disney specialized travel agency. It's my job, along with all of the vacationeers on the Ear to There Travel team. And if you don't know what a vacationeer is, that is our agents. And it's our job to take away all of that stress, all of that anxiety, and all of that time that it takes to plan a Disney trip, so you can focus on the really fun things like having a great time with your family and friends and enjoying the magic. Listen, now more than ever, it's going to be pretty tricky for a while to book at Disney. You know what I sound like? I sound like those commercials, and I'm not making light of anything. I promise I would never in a billion years make light of the COVID-19, the pandemic, everything that's been going on in the world, but don't those commercials drive you a little crazy? In these uncertain times, you know that you need someone that you can trust. That's why Tony's Pizza Palace is offering contact-free pick. You're like, come on, man. We all know. It's been 3 months. We all know. We all know about this stuff. We know about the contact-free pickup. We know about washing our hands. We know about the masks. Come on. I just want to see a commercial for pizza or for diapers that doesn't mention something about the darn pandemic. I mean, my gosh, we all understand it's very difficult right now. Okay, back to the show. So it's our job to take away all that stuff. And you can find this podcast. You can meet all of the agents, all the vacationeers, and get your free, no obligation quote, although you can't get it just yet, hopefully soon, over at ear2theretravel.com. Hang in there, we're coming back. That's what this episode is all about. This week, I just wanted to go do a deep dive into the reopening of Walt Disney World, which we now have a lot of information on. I'll delve into the reopening of Disneyland just a little bit. We don't have a ton of information on that just yet. And listen, you come here, you listen to this podcast because I've been told, hey, listen, I don't know, but I've been told it's fun. I've been told it's funny. I've been told it's lighthearted and enjoyable. And that's why you come. So this isn't going to be a heavy-handed episode. I'm going to walk you through everything, what to expect, what not to expect. It's actually going to be kind of fun. And I'll sum it up in the most enjoyable way that I possibly can. I'm sure you can hear me smiling through the microphone. But before we get into the episode, I want to get into the What About Bob segment of the show. Now, if you don't know who Disney legend and Imagineer my friend Bob Gurr is, well, let me tell you. Bob Gurr was hired by Walt Disney in 1954. His first job was to design the Autopia cars for Disneyland. Walt then had him design things like the monorail, which was the first ever monorail in the Western Hemisphere, by the way. The Matterhorn, both the track and the mountain itself. The submarines, the Main Street vehicles, the Omnimover vehicles, including the Haunted Mansion. It's been said if it's on wheels and it's in Disneyland, Bob Gurr designed it. So Bob is on the show to answer your questions and mine, and he's also here to promote his Waltland bus tour. Now, the bus tour has been on hiatus for the last couple of months due to the COVID pandemic, but once it's all okay to go back to it, get tickets to the Waltland bus tour. Bob is the guide and the narrator of the tour, and he'll take you all around to the important places that made up the history of the Disney company with stops in Los Angeles, in Burbank, and in Glendale. This day includes a boxed lunch and a lot of time with Bob, and you make all kinds of stops in the history of the Disney company, but more importantly, in the history of the life and times of the company's founder, Walt Disney. To get tickets, again, once the pandemic is over, gosh, I hope it's soon, head over to www.waltland.com. All right, without further ado, here he is, my friend, Bob Gurr.
It's What About Bob? Bob Gurr, the legend, creator of the Matterhorn, the monorails and the Haunted Mansion. What about Bob?
About what story do you get told, or do you hear about Walt Disney all the time that's presented as fact, but it's not actually true?
Oh, that he was that is the hard, polite way to answer, that he was anti-Semitic and did not like the Hollywood Jewish movie community. That is 100% false. But that story, the genesis of the story was in the 1941 strike. Disney was severely disappointed and personally hurt by the fact that the guys struck against him, and it was all done with my guy's name was Babbitt, Harry Babbitt, I guess, something like that. Was sort of a semi-communist rabble-rouser at the studio that started a union strike against Walt. And then that created a whole bunch of very bad press in the newspapers at the time. And what made this more complicated was, coming out of the 30s, the Communist Party of the United States was quite strong. It had a lot of followers. We also had a lot of people in the American Nazi Party that was supporting Adolf Hitler. And somehow Walt got swept into this whole thing because of the communists in Hollywood. There's a lot of people trying to fight him and stop him. And every time a labor leader, got very powerful, they assumed the guy was a communist. So it turns out that when Walt fought back against him, and it turned out, there was a lot of Jewish people in the communist group that this muck against Walt got stuck at the time. And then since professional authors who write stories about Walt Disney, they go back and research everything, and they're researching stuff that's completely wrong at the time, and they have no idea that their research is full of fake stuff. And, once fake stuff gets out, you can't stamp it out. It won't go away ever. But that's the prime thing that Walt is always accused of, and there was no way. He was just not that kind of guy. Not at all.
Thank you to Bob Garrett for answering another question on the show. This one was important to me this week. I'm actually really glad I had this soundbite from Bob, because there's a lot of misinformation out there about Walt Disney. Unfortunately, like Bob said, people have inaccurate facts that they're told or that they read and they run with them. And it makes it impossible for people like Bob or like Julie Andrews or Rolly Crump or Floyd Norman. It makes it impossible for those guys to tell the truth, to tell the real stories about Walt. Or how about Richard Sherman, who he and his brother Robert were Walt's songwriters and friends. Walt spent a ton of time with the Sherman brothers at his studio and in social situations. If Walt was truly an anti-Semite or a racist, that would have come out during his time, but it didn't. And honestly, I got into, this is not like me at all. I don't ever get into it with others on social media, that some people call them trolls. I don't engage with those folks on social media, but this past week I did. It was a dumb mistake by me. And I did because of the Splash Mountain controversy. Disney fans want to have Splash Mountain rethemed because of its association with Song of the South. Now, I'm not going to comment on Song of the South. I saw it years and years ago. And yes, there are very inappropriate themes in the film. There are troublesome racial stereotypes in the film. That's why Disney hasn't released it. And listen, it's not up to me, and I honestly cannot have an opinion on whether or not it's offensive to other people. What I can have an opinion on, though, is if Walt Disney was an anti-Semite and a racist, because I've done a ton of research, a ton of reading. I've talked to a lot of people who knew Walt personally and spent a lot of time with him. So I do have a little bit of an area of expertise when it comes to Walt Disney. I always call myself an amateur Disney or an amateur Walt Disney historian. And I just wanted to put this out there because a lot of people in Hollywood today and a lot of people who haven't done the research will just tell you, blanket statement, Walt Disney was a misogynist, he was a bigot, he was an anti-Semite, and it's not true. And listen, Song of the South was made by Walt Disney, and I'm not going to defend the film, but listen, Walt Disney actually lobbied for James Baskett, who plays Uncle Remus in the film. He lobbied for James Baskett to get an Oscar for his performance. Now, James Baskett was not allowed to attend the Oscars that year because of the color of his skin, but Walt not only lobbied for him to receive an Oscar, but was successful, and James Baskett was the first ever Black actor to win an Academy Award. So listen, you can make your own decisions, but I just wanted to present you, the listener, with the facts. So next time you hear that stuff, you can say, well, I don't know about that. Anyway, thanks again to Bob for answering the question. Thank you for listening to my little rant. And let's move on to the reopening of our favorite places, the Disney theme parks. So before we even get into the episode, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. I wanted to say that right off the bat. I took a couple weeks off of podcasting. It wasn't really intentional, but due to, all of the things happening in the country, the pandemic, the horrible situation that happened with the police in Minnesota, the continued protests, all of that stuff. Listen, I know you don't come here for current events. You're not here to hear my opinion on really anything unless I'm talking about how awesome Casey's Corner is and how my friend Chuck Rodriguez stinks because he doesn't like it, doesn't like cheese. But honestly, it was hard to talk Disney for a little bit there. And I just kind of took the time like other podcasters did. Took a little break to reflect and kind of look at myself and how I see things and how I view things. And again, you're not here for that. You're not here to listen to me talk about that. But the last thing I'm going to say is I think we as Americans can do better and we have to do better. And hopefully the last couple of weeks in the country are a turning point and we can move forward and go ahead from here. Listen, I want the world to be a great place for my kids to grow up in, for your kids to grow up in. That's all that really matters to me. So anyway, thank you again for listening. I won't mention anything else. I really appreciate you being here. You are awesome. Let's talk about Disney because Walt Disney World is reopening. Disney Springs is already open to guests. On June 22nd, select Disney Deluxe Villa Resorts and Disney's Fort Wilderson Resort and Campground are going to reopen. So I'm going to give you the list of the resorts that will be reopening on June 22nd. This is going to be kind of a heavy information podcast, but hopefully we'll have some laughs and get some stuff straightened out along the way, just in case you have some questions on exactly what's happening. So opening in Walt Disney World on June 22nd are Bay Lake Tower at Disney's Contemporary Resort, Boulder Ridge Villas at Disney's Wilderness Lodge, the Copper Creek Villas as well at Wilderness Lodge, Disney's Animal Kingdom Villas at Kidani Village, Disney's Beach Club Villas, Disney's Boardwalk Villas, Disney's Old Key West Resort. I keep saying Disney's. I'm just reading the release from Walt Disney World. I don't have to say Disney's every time. Old Key West Resort, the Polynesian Villas and Bungalows, the Riviera Resort, Saratoga Springs Resort, and the villas at Disney's Grand Floridian Resort. So if you already have a resort hotel stay booked there, beginning on June 22nd, you are welcome to check in to your Walt Disney World resort room on June 22nd and after. Now, again, that has to be at one of those resorts that I just mentioned. As far as the theme parks go, Magic Kingdom and Disney's Animal Kingdom parks are reopening on July 11th, and then Epcot and Disney's Hollywood Studios are reopening on July 15th. Now, if you're looking to stay somewhere on the East Coast that's not Walt Disney World, Disney's Hilton Head opens on June 15th, and Disney's Vero Beach opened on June 15th. So those are already both open for your check-ins. All right, so let's talk about the resorts first. What do you need to know about checking into your Disney Resort hotels starting on June 22nd. Now, a big thing that you should know is that guests who are under isolation orders may not check in and may not enter Walt Disney World property. Now, those guests include anyone from New York State, Connecticut, or New Jersey. So if you are coming to Walt Disney World from any of those 3 states, you have to quarantine in place in Florida for 14 days before you can check into Walt Disney World. So you basically need, you have to have a hotel, a house, a friend, something where you stay for 2 weeks to make sure you're symptom-free before you can start your Walt Disney World vacation. Now, if you're planning on entering or checking into a Walt Disney World Resort hotel, of course, it has to be one of the ones that I mentioned earlier, you're going to need a few things. One, you're going to need a confirmed room reservation. Make sure that that reservation is linked to your My Disney Experience app. You're also going to want to use the online check-in system so you don't have to queue or stand in line with people at the front desk. Now, if you are a day guest and you're not going to be staying overnight or checking into the resort, you will need a confirmed dining reservation to be allowed entry into the resort. That also should be linked on your My Disney Experience app. You will also need to be wearing a face mask, obviously over your nose and your mouth. These masks have to be kept on in all public areas until you enter your resort hotel room or unless you are eating or drinking. That's going to be the same thing for the theme parks and for Disney Springs as well. Now, in order to get into a theme park during your Walt Disney World stay, again, it has to be after July 11th or the 15th. You are going to need valid theme park admission, and you will need a reservation that you will make on the My Disney Experience app for your park days. It's also recommended that you have a contactless or cashless form of payment to use at the resorts and in the parks as well, actually. Now, cash will still be accepted, but it's recommended for the health and safety of everyone involved, including Disney's cast members, that you use the Magic Band, that you use a debit card or a credit card to make purchases while on Disney property. All right, you got all that so far. Listen, this isn't going to be forever, and it's also not going to be for everybody. So I get it if you're listening to this right now and you're like, oh man, I can't do all of that. Listen, I'm pretty much with you. As I said before on the show, I have a child with generalized anxiety disorder. I have generalized anxiety disorder myself. And while I know and understand that I'm safer with the mask, and I would never think about not wearing the mask when it was mandatory from Disney for me to wear the mask, I get a little bit freaked out by the masks. I have to admit, I have to be honest, I haven't been into a store here in Pennsylvania since early April. Everything we do is on Shipt or Peapod for our food. We do Amazon for everything. Listen, I'm right there with you. If this is weirding you out, freaking you out, these restrictions will go away eventually. It's just a matter of time. And if someone's telling you they know when these restrictions are going to go away, guess what? They are either a soothsayer, I like that word, a fortune teller, a soothsayer, or a liar, pants on fire. Because right now, in mid-June 2020, no one knows when these restrictions will be eased. So you might have some questions like, hey, Phil, we are going to be checking into our Walt Disney World hotel at this time. We do want to use Disney's Magical Express service. Is it available? Well, yes, it is. DME will be available for guests arriving to and departing from Walt Disney World. Just make sure you have that added to your reservation. How about this one? Hey, Phil, what about Fast Passes? Well, no. Right now, for the time being, Fast Pass Plus system will not be used. Instead, Walt Disney World is going to use those Fast Pass return queues as extra space so that guests can socially distance a little easier in all of the queues. So as for the time being, no Fast Pass Plus will be available. How about extra magic hours? Unfortunately, no. As of right now, there will be no extra magic hours. I have an idea. Instead of extra magic hours, when you leave the park, bring your iPhone, bring some headphones, listen to this podcast on your way on the bus or on the monorail back to your resort. Boom. Instant extra magic hours. Although you have to spend it with me, so maybe it's not that magic or magical. You tell me. All right, one of the big things that people worry about in the resorts, in the hotels, is cleanliness. Is everything going to be clean for myself and for my family on our stay? So between one guest's check out of a room and the next guest's check in, the room is going to be thoroughly cleaned and sanitized. The common areas of the resorts, the hallways, the elevators, the handrails on the stairs, they will also be receiving enhanced cleaning. As far as housekeeping for your stay, before you get into your room, all of the high-touch areas like TV remote controls and door handles, they will be thoroughly cleaned and sanitized. Housekeeping tools that the cast members use will be cleaned and sanitized in between each room. The floors will be steam cleaned and vacuumed in between guests. Inside your room, you're going to find individually wrapped glassware, double encased pillows, and items like remote controls will be cleaned and wrapped in individual bags. As far as the resort transportation goes, complimentary transportation including buses, monorails, and watercraft will be available when the theme parks open. Until then, when only Disney Springs is open, the Disney Bus complimentary service will be available. There will be no minivan service at the start of the opening of the parks and the resorts. All right, let's get into resort services. Bell Services is going to be available to take your luggage to your room, but they will no longer, at least for now, be accompanying guests. The club level services will be temporarily unavailable. Deliveries will only be made to occupied rooms. There will be no in-room celebrations available. Dry cleaning and valet laundry services will not be available. Shipping services, I know this is like a lot of not being available. Hang in there, I'm going to get to more good stuff. But the shipping services are not available. And resort airline check-in services, where you check in for the Magical Express from your resort, also may not be available. All right, shake it off. Shake off that not available stuff, all right? Just shake your head. I'm doing it with my headphones on right now as I get ready to tell you more stuff. Shake it off. Okay, let's talk dining in the hotels. Select dining experiences will be available. That's a positive. Dining will be open. Pools. When it comes to the pools, the big feature pools will be open. Of course, there will be physical distancing, social distancing involved. The capacity will be lowered. The hours might be lowered, but there will be pools, there will be swimming, there will be lifeguards at all of the resorts that I had mentioned. The leisure pools that aren't guarded by lifeguards will be open 24 hours a day. Now, Storm Along Bay at the Yacht and Beach Club will not be open, will not be available at this time when the parks and resorts reopen. Guests who are checked in, who are booked at the Yacht and Beach Club, will be able to use the leisure pool at the beach club or the big Luna Park pool over at Disney's Boardwalk Villas. Merchandise locations, the shops in the resorts will be open. There will be new product launches. There will be pin trading. That's something that I was super actually surprised to find out about. Pin trading will still happen, although it won't happen from cast members on lanyards. They will have to be on pin boards, but you and your kids can pin trade with cast members. As far as merchandise returns go, they will be permitted once those merchandise locations are open. All right, now more temporarily unavailable things include arcades, campfires, dog parks, the electrical water pageant, which really bums me out, but it's going to come back. It's just unavailable at the start. Marina rentals, playgrounds, spas, salons, and the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, they are all temporarily unavailable. All right, some more things. I don't mean to laugh. I'm sorry. It's just the times. It just makes me laugh. There are more things that are temporarily unavailable. As I went into this, I was like, I'm going to tell everybody all the good stuff that's available. And man, we're 20 minutes in and we're just like, this is not available. All right, here we go. There will be no fireworks voyages, no tasting cruises, including the Pirates and Pals fireworks voyage. The fun runs are suspended. The Wonderland Tea Party at Park Fair is suspended. There will be no hula lessons, in-room childcare services, mermaid school, or special classes and programs, including culinary, cultural, or animal programs. Now, here's a cool thing. Starting on June 22nd, which is the day that those select DVC resorts open, on the My Disney Experience app, so make sure your app is completely updated, you can chat with a resort cast member for assistance during your stay. So if you have a question, if you have a problem, if you need help or advice, you can, of course, come to me. I'll always help you out. But I can't help you with anything on Walt Disney World property if I'm not there. So this feature will offer you convenient support nearly any time, so you don't have to go wait in line or wait in the lobby to talk to a cast member. So that will be virtual chat on the My Disney Experience app starting on June 22nd. All right, now let's move on to the theme parks, and we'll talk. This is where some of the positive stuff comes in, people. So here we go. Keep that smile on your face if you have a trip planned. Or listen, you could always reschedule for sometime in 2021. I have had a lot of clients do that. Listen, I myself, or any of the agents on the Ear to Their Travel team, would love to help you with your booking in 2021. Of course, they aren't available yet, but keep an eye on the Ear to Their Travel website and on all of our social media accounts. As soon as booking for 2021 opens up, we will be helping our guests with booking those trips. So like I said, Magic Kingdom and Disney's Animal Kingdom open on July 11th. Epcot and Disney's Hollywood Studios open on July 15th. You will need park reservations to get into the park. So you will have to make those reservations in advance. A note came out from Walt Disney World today, June 16th, 2020, to be on the lookout as those reservation systems will open very soon. You will, of course, also need valid park admission for the date that you are choosing to go to a theme park. There will be no park hopping temporarily, as that would be pretty impossible to do with all the social distancing and everything else. At this time, new ticket sales are temporarily on hold. If you have park tickets for your upcoming package reservation, or if you are a Disney annual pass, a Walt Disney World annual pass holder, you will have access to the reservation system before any new tickets are sold. So if you are a guest or an upcoming guest who has a room-only reservation, you will have to wait to buy a ticket until those who already have tickets have access to the reservation system. Listen, if any of this doesn't make sense to you, shoot me an email, phil@eartotheirtravel.com. I'm more than happy to answer your questions individually. At this time, there are also no new bookings either for 2020 or for 2021 being made. That includes resorts and that includes park tickets. Now, like I said just a minute ago, those are expected to open very shortly. Now, attendance in the park, capacity in the park is going to be greatly modified and lowered at the start. And of course, Disney is working with government officials, government officials and health experts to open the parks as safely as possible. Now, some things will not be available when these theme parks reopen. Some attractions, experiences such as shows, parades, and fireworks will not be available at the start of the park openings. More information is forthcoming in the next couple of weeks, and as soon as I know what's going on, I will tell you either on a podcast or on social media. Listen, the best way to follow me is social media, so jump onto Facebook. I'm Phil at Ear to Their Travel on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter, you can follow me on Instagram, but Facebook is the best way because I update that, both the Ear to Their Travel business page and my Phil from Ear to Their Travel page. I update those several times a day. So just join me there and you'll find everything you need. In the parks, there will be signage and ground markings that were installed to help guests navigate common areas while practicing physical distancing. There are also going to be physical barriers that have been added in places where it might be a little too hard to maintain those strict physical distancing guidelines. This means in places like cash registers, guest relations, etc., to help ensure that physical distance is maintained. And like I said earlier about the resorts, cashless transactions are recommended. Disney will accept cash, but you have to prove that you have not been out of the country, not pet any animals, not been, no, I'm kidding. Sorry, bad joke, but cash will be accepted, but it is recommended that you do not use cash. And like I mentioned earlier, face coverings, face masks are required for everyone 2 years of age or older. Now, what you're saying right now is the exact same thing that I would be saying if I had a child that was 2, 3, or 4 years old. Guess what, man? My kid won't keep a mask on. I know. This is Disney's requirement based on what government officials have recommended, and Disney will be reinforcing this in some way throughout the parks. I honestly don't know how, if my kids are 7 and 9. I have 2 7-year-olds and a 9-year-old. Listen, I'm going to be completely honest because I always am on this show. I don't get them to keep masks on, which is why we don't go anywhere right now, except for taking drives and walks around the neighborhood, or we walk the dog. I get it. I know how hard it is. It's going to be to keep your child 2 years old, 3 years old in a mask. If you don't think your child can wear the mask, if all this stuff that I mentioned in this half-hour long show, if it's all going to be too hard for you to deal with, listen, I don't blame you one bit. Other people are going to go. Judging by Universal's attendance so far, judging by Shanghai's attendance, Shanghai Disneyland, people are going to go to the parks. So if this isn't for you, please don't worry about it. Cancel your trip, reschedule your trip, rebook. And like I said, listen, me, all of my agents, we're here. We're ready to help you book when you want to book. We don't charge a fee. As a matter of fact, did you know that when you book a trip directly through Disney, the commission for a travel agent is already built into the price that you pay? So yeah, you're paying the same price with a travel agent or without. Let one of us help you book your trip. We'll walk you through all the tough stuff. We'll help you with all the changes and the more difficult things. Anyway, that's enough of a plug for us. I just know, and I feel very confident in myself and all of my vacationers on the team, that we can help you have a magical vacation. Whether it's now, whether it's in 2021, we can do it. All right. Another thing that I wanted to mention is the temperature screenings. Now, you will have a cast member take your temperature before you enter a park. It's contactless. It's one of those forehead reading thermometers, but your temperature will be taken. Any guest who has a temperature over 100.4 will require a second temperature screening. If the second temperature screening is again over 100.4, not only will that guest not be able to enter the park that day, no one in that guest's party will be able to enter the park that day. So if one person's temperature is over 100.4, everyone in your party will be turned away. Your best bet is to bring thermometers with you, keep them in your hotel room, and check your temperature daily before you leave the room. And that's it. That is all the news I have. That's all the updates. That's all that I can say that's going to go on. New news is coming out all the time, every day. I've been told by Disney to keep an eye on my email this week. So I will do that. You keep an eye on my Facebook or my other social media accounts. I will let you know what I know when I know. And do yourself a favor. Don't listen to any of the rumors out there. There are a ton of them. Those blog sites, let me just tell you something. They are rumor mills. If you want something fun to read, it's fine. If you just don't believe them, don't believe everything you read on social media, because so many of them are just looking for clicks. Listen, I'm going to get off my soapbox in a second, but it drives me crazy. Like the Enchanted Tiki Room was going somewhere last year, like the Country Bear Jamboree was going somewhere last year. Nothing's official. Nothing's happening until Disney announces it. And I won't make any announcement that is fact until I get an email confirming it from the company. That's it. Rant over. I'm officially stepping down from my soapbox. I don't know what that means, by the way. Is it because people were smaller back then and they had to step on a soapbox so they could stand above the crowd and everybody could see them? I never knew what that meant. You know what? I'm not going to look it up either. That's what it means to me. And that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Ear to There Disney podcast. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Thank you to Bob Geyer for answering a question at the beginning of the show. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know it was a lot of just like throwing information at you, but I wanted to make sure you knew everything there was. And listen, if you're like me, you might not have the patience to sit in front of a computer or on the app and just read all of this stuff. You'd rather listen to it in your car or something. So I know it's not the most entertaining type of episode, but I wanted to make sure I put it out there. So thank you again so much for listening. You're awesome. There will be a new episode next week. I'm back on the weekly podcast train. Look for a new episode of a numbered episode of the show, along with a word of the week. And listen, do me a favor. I hear from a lot of people that they listen to the show. I get emails and direct messages and Facebook messages all the time, even texts I get because my cell phone number is out there. But I don't have a lot of people subscribing to the show. Do me a favor, go into Apple Podcasts and subscribe. It means the world to me. That way the podcast will download to your device automatically whenever one is released. My numbers go up. You can listen to me, which is, let's be for real, what you really want anyway. No, seriously, thank you so much. Subscribe to the show. I'd greatly appreciate it. Listen, have yourself an amazing week. We're getting there. We're getting closer to being in the parks again. We're getting closer to being in the resorts again. We're getting closer to actually having physical contact and being able to shake hands and hug again. It's coming. I promise it's going to happen. Thank you again for listening. You are awesome. I appreciate each and every single one of you. Have yourself an amazing week. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Ear to there.